Go. Oh.
Welcome to this episode of The Entrepreneur Speaks. My name is Kofi Anyimedu. My guest today is an entrepreneur and multiple business owner with an infectious energy and zest for life in everything he does. James Ash has a wealth of experience in public speaking, presenting, business mentoring, and confidence coaching. James is my guest today on The Entrepreneur Speaks. Welcome to my show, James.
How are you doing, mate? I'm so pleased to be here. We've tried to do this for a while now, and so it's nice to be finally sat down and chatting with you. So thanks for having me on. It's awesome.
All right, then. It feels good to have you on this. Let's kick off our conversation by you telling us a bit more about yourself and how your childhood was like.
Right. Okay. So, well, a bit about myself. Multiple business owner, as you've said, entrepreneur, infectious energy, which is essentially ADHD, attention hyperactive attention deficit disorder. I think I got that right. So I have a lot of energy and inner drive to be doing a lot of things often, most of the time. But yeah, which is interesting because looking back at my childhood with that. It was an interesting time. I needed to be active. School, in terms of the schooling system, which you often find for entrepreneurs, especially in the UK, the schooling system doesn't accommodate entrepreneurial individuals. Essentially, generally speaking, the schooling system educates kids and students for to go into employment, and of course entrepreneurs don't really fit that mold. We think very differently, and so looking back at my childhood, if it wasn't for sport and the ability to play sport every break time and lunchtime and have sports classes 3 or 4 times a week, I think I would have gone insane. Really, it was a big struggle school for me, confined into 4 walls and being educated in a very general way that everybody else is educated. I struggled with that tremendously. So yeah, it was an interesting time, childhood, but I used to find myself doing anything and everything, physical activity, something to keep me busy. I mean, I'd have breakfast and leave my house in the morning on weekends, and I'd catch up with friends, and I wouldn't return until the sun was setting, until I had to be in. So I would skip meals so I could play football and play with my friends. So I was incredibly active as a child, and essentially that hasn't really changed going into adulthood, to be fair.
Yeah, so let's now talk about your businesses. Tell us about the businesses you've been engaging.
Is that current day or like actually my business journey, Kofi? What would you like to know?
Let's start off with what you are currently engaged in, and later on we could look at those you've done in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So modern day, we have a digital media marketing agency called Pink Media, and that's Pink with a Q, not a K. So Pink Media.
Yeah.
And essentially we've done a variety of things since we started in the August of, what was it, 2019 it was, we officially started. So new business, and we've done a variety of things, from social media marketing, social media management, designing of graphics and video recording, video editing, photography, to hosting seminars, supporting events, so a range of areas. And that's really led us to current day with the agency, that we're actually focusing on the podcast route. So we have our own podcast that we've been running now with 75 plus episodes, and we've reached over 250,000 people in 86 countries. And that's called the Business Lockdown. So that's been amazing, speaking with a host of a wealth of entrepreneurs and wealth coaches, fitness coaches. We've had Buddhist nuns and psychologists, psychiatrists, a real wide range of individuals and group recordings with that. But we found ourselves actually then taking everything that we've learned and helping others. So we've worked professionally with people building their personal brands and their podcast journeys. So then we provide editing, and we provide subtitles and create cue cards and inspirational visuals for their channels. And I also coach people as well in terms of how to best place themselves for guests on their podcast. I mean, even I couldn't help myself when we first connected. I naturally found myself doing that with yourself. We were talking on a number of fronts in terms of the podcasting world and things that I've bits of advice that I've picked up along the way. And I just have this this need to try and help people as often as possible. So we've got that one. We still officially have a skincare brand called Okasan, which is a Japanese skincare brand for the pregnancy market. However, with COVID hitting, we just had to shelve that literally because I guess this, not only the skincare market became a lot more apprehensive about purchasing oils and products to put on their bodies, but that was even more so with the pregnancy market. So under normal circumstances, people are very cautious about what they put on their skin whilst they're pregnant. You throw the pandemic in, and it's certainly early days when everybody thought it was, I guess, so much more. I mean, it's a serious situation, of course, but when it first hit, nobody knew what we were dealing with. Everybody feared the worst. So we just had to put the brakes on with our skincare brand. That was at play. And then I also have a electronic music event company called Elements, and I'm also a DJ under that company. And I'm really proud to be one of the kind of directors, the core members with that. But again, with the music and events industry, that came to a grinding halt. We had a big Asian tour last winter in Japan and Vietnam and Thailand and the Philippines, to name a few countries. And of course, that all came to a halt as well. So we've found we've pivoted a lot. We've had to adapt and change what we do and how we do it. And I think most people can really relate to that. But also, it's not been a surprise with my network. I surround myself with successful, driven, positive people. And when COVID hit, it wasn't a surprise that my network didn't sit down and be told what to do by their governments. It was like, right, stand up and be counted, and explore what opportunities are out there and how we need to be flexible and how we need to adapt our businesses. And so that's been a really big thing at play, not only with businesses, but also personally as well. And if it wasn't for the pandemic, we wouldn't have started our podcast as we did. We procrastinated for a year. So we delayed. We went through 3 different sets of different equipment. We questioned who our audience might be, what topics we would talk about. Would it be lifestyle, travel, business, you name it? And then the pandemic hitting, we was like, right, we need to connect with as many people as possible. But more importantly, we want to connect as many people together as possible. And the podcast was the obvious choice. It was the one that we just needed to take action. And that's a really big piece of advice that I could give people. And we'll cover, I'm sure, more in today's show about just taking action and making that first step, that first episode recording, your first point of difference that you need to make in order to create something that you need to be doing or need to be making or developing. And that can relate in many walks of life, business and also personal situations as well. So it's been an interesting time, Kofi. I can say that for all of us, I'm sure. But everyone's got a story, but we're still here, we're still fighting and still working out exactly what it is we're world class at, and what we're really going to focus on this year. Last year was a lot of testing, and now we're really niching down, focusing down on what we are going to do for 2021 and make a real impact, not only for us but everybody else around us as well.
Yeah, that's true. So let's still talk about your business. So prior to the setup of these businesses, did you try other things?
The reason I laugh is because if my mum and dad would have heard that question, they would be laughing, because I think that's from being a small child. I've done the amount of things I've tried, from all sports you could imagine, to hobbies, to interests, to traveling the world. And I think it's just in my blood to be trying a lot of different things. And that certainly carried forward into my business journey. I mean, my career before going into business was mental health and sport. So I was essentially a sports leader for adults with learning disabilities and challenging behaviors. And I also coached pro soccer in California, working with the MLS out there near San Francisco, San Jose. And then I went into the crazy world of business and I started a clothing company. And it was literally just off the back of an opportunity. And it was one of those moments. I wonder if some of your guests have kind of spoken in the same way, that it's about, if you don't take an opportunity, it's what you might regret later on in life. And I find it very difficult to live with regrets. And it's often regrets from what you don't do than regretting anything that you actually do and take on. And even if you've taken something on and it hasn't worked out, you can learn so much from those experiences. But it's it's the things that you don't do that you kick yourself. And so I went into business and didn't have a clue what I was doing. Didn't have a clue. I spent a year on eBay, so I learned how to ship items in the UK, ship items internationally, deal with customer complaints, feedback, actually wrapping items themselves, and learning that process for a year before I went into before I gave up my career and started an online eBay shop, a clothing company, and did that for 8 months. And then looked at the people around me, and we started a bigger company, and that turned into us having two physical stores, and we ran events down in London, in the capital, and we actually created our own brands and we wholesaled them globally around the world. So we had other people selling, other retailers selling our garments. So that was essentially, that was my introduction to business, going into it and not knowing anything, not knowing much about fashion, not really knowing anything about business, and just learning, working 7 days a week, 12 to 16, 18 hours a day, earning very little money, moving back in with my parents, driving a small old car. It's kind of classic entrepreneurial story of sacrifice and compromise in order to really drive and learn your craft. And I think that's so important. You can only read so many books and watch so many seminars and listen to so many podcasts, but you have to take action and you have to do it. You have to put in the hard work, literally the blood, sweat and tears, Kofi, that are required from business and learning. In all honesty, those are the toughest times in business in my life, but definitely the most beneficial, in the long run. Not earning money. It's like, why would you do it if you're not earning money? What is the, and if you're only in it to earn money, then you'll fail very early on. But if there's an inner drive and there's a passion, especially if if you're going to be in business, do something that you love, because it can be very, very hard work and challenging. And if you're doing something that you love, there's an inner drive. There's a reason why you'll stay up till 4 a.m. and then and go to bed for an hour or two and wake up at 6 and then get back at it. There needs to be a reason why, because otherwise it just sounds like lunacy, right? It sounds craziness. Why on earth you would do that? And essentially, people who aren't entrepreneurial, non-entrepreneurs, wouldn't understand that. So yeah, it was an interesting journey, that, mate. And then from that I went into, from what I learned with fashion, I then started a fashion marketing agency that was I had a model agency under that. I was putting on catwalk events. I was hosting, so I was doing a lot of hosting work and working with stylists and working with some really big brands like Topshop and River Island and Ralph Lauren's. And so working with a lot of big brands and retailers, and it was a great journey. But then I spotted that the retail market was struggling, and essentially that would impact on budgets and fall down to my business. So essentially I pivoted and looked at what I was going to do, and then became a national marketing director. So in a different industry, in foster care, and did that for nearly a year before giving everything up and moving to Turkey and resetting, and literally a complete reset. I ended my relationship. I sold my car. I rented my house out. I moved overseas. I gave up my career. Everything was gone, from choice, and I did a full reset and really thought about what I wanted to do with life and where I wanted to be in a number of ways, and it invested a lot personally in exploring through seminars and um, educational stuff and just reflecting and then also traveling as well. And it was an interesting time in life, Kofi. That's probably the best way I can describe that journey in a shortest the shortest way possible.
Yeah, so you're a man of many parts, engaged in so many things. And I believe like any other thing, there's been challenges, wins, lessons. Um, what has been some of the challenges you've encountered so far on this journey? Can you share some of these challenges with us?
Yeah, mate, absolutely. I'm all about sharing anything and everything if it can be potential benefit to somebody. Um, I mean, yeah, challenges. I mean, if we start from early days, it's just not really knowing what I was doing. It was just a decision, and if I'm invested into something, if I'm committed, I will make sure it happens. It's just a matter of how long that will take, rather than if it won't. So if I'm committed, I've just got this drive. If I'm committed, I will give it my all. And I think it's that drive that got me through, along with my network as well. So it's who you surround yourself with. That was the challenges were great, but because I had some amazing, experienced entrepreneurs and business people around me, um, I was I was very fortunate that those challenges were supported in a number of ways, and I can't, I can't thank those people enough. And I've been blessed with support throughout my business and entrepreneurial journey, and essentially that's why I'm always driven to help people in return as well, because I believe it's a rite of passage that if you're helped, it's you need to be giving that back in a number of ways as well. Um, so yeah, just all of the challenges that come with not knowing what you're going to do, and you can't anybody that's thinking of going into business and thinking they're not prepared. It's highly likely that you're never going to be fully prepared to go into business. So whether that's financially or emotionally or time, you might not have enough time to go into business. There's many factors, and it's highly likely that there's going to be a number of areas that aren't right. But you've got to question whether that's going to stop you forever. And at some point, it's about committing and just going for it. And I think that kind of inner drive really helped me. I mean, of course, along the way is not making much money and a lack of cash flow and running out of money and not knowing where the next sale will come from, all of that. And that's, as hard as that is at the time, it's also necessary. So anybody out there right now, which there are many people, of course, who are struggling, it's quite it's quite tricky to hear this, but these are the times that will benefit you the most. There's every possibility right now that these challenging times will set you up for the long run in a much better way than you could have imagined. And that's difficult to hear, because it must feel, and it does. I've certainly had very difficult times during this pandemic over the course of my business journey, which has been over 11 years now. And but these times will make you. If they don't break you, they will make you, right? So it'll either make or break you. That famous saying. And you've just got to take the positives out of it. And sometimes it can seem like the positives aren't around. There aren't any positives to take, and that might be the case right now. But I can promise you that there will be positives to come out of this. It's just when they will rear their heads, and you've just got to remain confident that will be the case. And although these are difficult times, you find out who your network is and who your support network is, and who are those around you that will help and support. And you need to identify those people, because those people, you'll need them in the future, and vice versa. You'll want and need to support them in return. So, but I mean, it's just general business journey. Other challenges that you have and opportunities that come your way. I mean, you can either choose to focus on one single thing, or as I describe it, you can have a number of plates spinning. And if you can spin a few plates, you can allow one or two to fall, because you've got other things progressing and moving forwards. And likewise, if an opportunity comes your way that's really positive, you also open yourself to maybe explore that opportunity and take that on board. And you might replace a plate that's maybe slowing down and not being too prosperous and replace that. And so it's kind of an analogy I use, that I think it's important to have a number of things happening. You might hear that people say, make sure your revenue, you have multiple revenue streams coming in, because if one area is struggling, you're not fully reliant on that. And if you look at the pandemic, Kofi, that's evident. I know people that had focus on just one thing, and it was successful for 12, 15 years. And the pandemic comes in and the industry's wiped. There's no event industry, there's no beauty industry. So all of a sudden their business has gone. A very successful one, yes, but their business has now gone. Whereas the people that I've spotted that had a number of things that they were working on, they've focused on one or two of those areas that they're still able to work on, for example. But likewise, if your business isn't able to run, what areas of your business are you able to focus on now? For example, if you've got a physical shop and you can't have customers come into your physical shop, then what do? Do you sit back and wait to be told that you can have customers, or do you invest time onto your website, onto your online sales, onto your e-commerce, onto your marketing, on your social media presence, and really bring those up, increase those levels of strength and quality, so when the doors do open, you're at a much better position to increase those sales and make those sales. So, but yeah, I mean, other challenges along the way, mate, are varied, but I think if you can try and identify with experience, you can be better placed to identify opportunities, and sometimes not being too precious to let something go. You can have an emotional attachment over a business, which can be great, but it can also provide barriers at play to move on forward with a new venture, or shift your current business in a way that is needed. But with those emotions at play, I've seen many people not want to shift their business because they're emotionally attached with that. So yeah, and a number of things along the way, but yeah, it's kind of a lot of it's standard stuff. But we there's no greater challenging time than now. I mean, we had the big the big dip in 2018 with the international banking and the financial crisis, and here we are in 2020, 2021, and everybody's facing challenges. But it's things like this, mate, your podcasts like this, that people are able to share stories and value and provide expertise in some areas of advice that people can take on board. And I mean, essentially, that's why we do it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So in talking about your challenges, you brought forth some lessons you've picked up, but I still want to ask, just as you've highlighted some of these challenges, I believe there's been a lot of lessons you've picked up. Can you share some of these lessons with us?
So lessons I've picked up along the way. Yeah, I think when I think of that, Kofi, I think it's more to do with like mindset. So I mean, you might have some people that would provide lessons in terms of like very business focused, but with myself, it's more about mindset, and I think about like almost being bulletproof. When you start business, you say yes to everything because you don't want to turn down an opportunity, and that was certainly the case with myself. I started my clothing company and I said yes to everything, to any event that I could trade at, to any event that maybe a hairdresser wanted to use my clothes on their models, and many examples like this. But after time, you realize you with experience that some of those opportunities are not only not beneficial to you, but they just take a lot of time and resources away from what you need to be doing in the business. And again, it's quite a strange one because you can essentially identify that without doing it, without saying yes to everything, and then realizing actually you need to place your energy and time in the areas that matter. But it's difficult to really know what they are without actually doing so, and it's like taking action. So start by opening yourself up to every opportunity, and that will gain you the experience moving forward to be best placed to identify what's great for you and your business. In terms of other lessons, Action, as I said, is key. And also, not. And when I say this, it's like learning not to really care about the right things, or learning not to care about the things that don't matter. It's I just mentioned about having emotional attachment, and if you've got emotional attachment to your business, your brand, and somebody comes along and doesn't like it, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your business or brand. I mean, it could do. They might know what they're talking about, and you should maybe have a think about that. But just because one person doesn't like your brand or business doesn't mean that you're not on the right path, and that they just might not be your ideal customer. And that's also important to identify, is to identify who your customer is. So whether you're a product, your business is a product business or a service business, the same applies, that you need to identify your customer. If you're in fashion, is your customer 18 to 35, for example? Is your customer male? What price points are you selling your t-shirts for? $10 or selling them for $90? And those two price points are very different when it comes to your target market. And then you're looking at your target market with disposable income. You know, under these times, people have a lot less disposable income right now. So that will have impacted on many businesses. And you look at the world of fashion, certainly when it goes to what they were pumping out on social media, fashion is a very fickle and shallow world at times. And it can all be about how much money you have and how many thousands of pounds your handbags cost for people to buy. Whereas you've seen a real switch in the fashion world now, and a lot of big fashion brands are now showing they're actually giving people insight into the people behind the brand, and them being at home and real life, and not this bling lifestyle, because they would alienate themselves from their clients from the rest of the world. So they've had to switch and pivot, for example. So, and there's many examples of that around the world. So it's like, yeah, make sure you identify who your customer is. It's almost impossible to go out and try and, I mean, there's a certain area of selling your service and your products, and that process of finding who your customers are, of course, that real life practice. But also do your research, do your market research, go out and who are your competitors, have they spent thousands upon thousands of dollars with their market research that you can look at and benefit from? Who do you align yourselves with as a company and a brand? And by doing that, you can then look at your price points, and essentially in the industry that you're working in, your tone of voice on social media. Are you going to be loud? Are you going to be sensitive? Are you going to be calming? Are you looking to build a community with your brand? Is it a community-based brand? Are you going to be aligning yourself with incredible individuals, rock stars, pop stars, actors? All of these things. If there's somebody that's outspoken in the world, are you aligning yourself up with those people as a brand? And if so, then are your customers aligning themselves up with you and these people? So certainly when it comes to market research, there's a lot of lessons there, and you almost, you can, it's impossible. You can make some big financial errors without putting the time and resources into discovering who your clients are, who your customer base is. And it's easier to do now than ever with the amount of people out. Everybody's offering high value. You've got big businesses and brands going on podcasts, doing little vlogs, creating articles, and telling everybody their stories and what they've done and how they've done it. So you've got an awesome opportunity as an entrepreneur, as a business owner now, to learn from the best, because everybody is sharing their story. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, it was not like this. People would be very secretive, because they wouldn't want to give value, to give a potential competitor any leverage, any value that they could benefit from. But it's very different now, and still some people don't understand why entrepreneurs, business owners do that. Why they don't understand why they open up and share value. But it does win the day, by sharing. And again, it's if you're marketing, you're generating an audience and attention. And there's no better way to generate an audience and attention by giving help, advice, and value, like we're doing today. So that's certainly a big lesson. But it's also something that I love to do naturally as well, is have a chat with people and help. I was helped massively, which I touched on. So I just feel it's a rite of passage to do the same.
Mm. All right, then now let's talk about COVID pandemic and its effect on our activities now.
Mhm.
You are in business, doing multiple businesses. Um, how has it had an effect on you? How has COVID-19 shaped the way you run your activities?
Yes, good question. Well, I left the UK end of 2018, so I was kind of ahead of the curve in terms of working remotely and digitally as a digital nomad, you could say. I came out to Turkey, and then I worked whilst I was traveling in Thailand and Czech Republic and a number of places, and yeah, and then I worked remotely in Morocco for 2.5 months, so I was kind of already doing so. It's taken a bit more getting used to with my team and people in my network to work remotely. It's taken some getting used to, but that has improved over time. So I was already working remotely and using Zoom for years before the pandemic hit. So there was that, but it's been quite difficult supporting my team over the past year in working remotely, in having that headspace, making sure their well-being is looked after, and mental health, and that's been a challenge. You know, that has been a real challenge, and I found myself at the start of the pandemic. I'm not anymore, but I was a single guy, so I had essentially more time on my hands than friends and my network who had kids, who were married and had kids. So I found myself personally trying to provide, I guess, as much support and happiness as I could with as many people as I could. Video calls, messages, sharing articles of support and laughter, and just trying to provide as much of myself as I could to others that were in very different situations. I mean, I could still I could still exercise and go out for a run and get fresh air when others were locked down. So I was very aware of that and my situation. So I was driven to try and help others as much as possible with that. So that was that. You know, it's been a challenge over the course, Kofi, for sure. But yeah, mental health has been a real struggle. I mean, turning into 2021, I made a real commitment to start, be training again, physically training, so hitting the gym a lot and running and playing football. Um, not drinking, so coming off alcohol, so just to cleanse and take a breather and hitting a really good diet and to be guys the best position for me first, so I can be the best version of me to everybody around. And I think when you do that, the challenges at play can be met or can be overcome. Um, um, I don't sound easier, but I think there could be you can be better placed to deal with the challenges. I mean, essentially, there's many people out there that have struggled with whether it's been drinking or poor diet or lack of exercise and trying to juggle homeschooling and business and not winning on any front. I've spoken to a number of people that haven't won on any front. They've not really done well at homeschooling or in their relationship or with the children and so on. And it's tough, it's been very tough out there. And so um but kind of advice with that from my experience and talking with a lot of people is pick, if you're not winning on any front, is pick at least one that you can focus on and thrive. So if you've got a family, and I know you're a family man, Kofi, and I'm sure you can relate. It's been challenging for yourself over time, and it's just like, right, well, what can you do for yourself to be best placed for your family? I mean, how has that looked for yourself, Kofi? I mean, what have you done to make sure that you're energized and your mental health and physical well-being is in check in order to be energized and motivated for your family? How has that looked for you, mate? I'm curious.
Yeah, so like you pointed out, it's about you focusing and thinking bits.
Hmm.
So like you rightly pointed out, there's homeschooling to do. Homeschooling comes with a lot of supervision, for example, because their attention span is not like ours. So you always have to be involved in whatever they're doing. So
Hmm.
so it calls for more planning, and more evaluation and monitoring.
Hmm.
So for me, I've told myself in everything you need to get involved, because it's only by getting involved that it can be done.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more of planning and getting involved.
Hmm.
Planning and getting involved.
And you seem like a very positive, naturally a positive guy. What you know, have you how has the last 11, 12 months been for you over the time? Have you found that you've remained strong and driven and motivated throughout, or have there been times where it's not been so easy to get out of bed and do what
No,
you
no,
need
no.
to
I
do?
wouldn't say I've been strong throughout. There's been down moments.
Hmm.
But like any other thing, you need to know yourself. It's like you driving a car. You're able to tell when your fuel level is high and when it's getting low. So at every point in time, when you realize that it's getting low, then you need to go and refuel.
Hmm.
So for me, it's about you gauging and realizing that no, I need a lot more motivation. Talk to someone, read this book, get involved in something. But for me, one other thing is I've told myself things are changing in life. The way we're doing business, we're even undertaking activities a year, 2 years ago has totally changed.
Hmm.
So, what are the skills that I can now acquire? Skills that will still make me more competitive.
Hmm.
So, based on that assessment, I would spend time now building myself on it. And I always say that this podcast has also been a blessing. I've been privileged to interact with so many people from different countries, different fields of endeavor, sharing different things. And for me, it's cool. I leave every conversation empowered to do more. So, it's been good for me. It's been good for me because I've met people like you who've assisted me. I've met so many people who are sharing their stories, guiding me, teaching me new things almost every day. So it's been good. It's been good. And these are things that you don't learn from school. You don't learn from textbooks. These are real life lessons you pick along the line. So it's been good. It's been good.
What would you say has been has there been anything that surprised you through your podcasting journey so far, Kofi? Something whether that's a good surprise or a challenge or a negative surprise. Have you had any surprises along the way?
The truth is, I started this whole thing with fear, because I wasn't too sure how it was going to be received. But I've been blown by the response, I must say. I've been blown by the response, and that is what is pushing me on to do what I'm doing. You receive comments on people saying that, oh yeah, I love this episode, I learned this from your guest, etc., etc. And for me, we are out to serve, we are out to share ideas with people, we are out to grow together. So
Hmm.
if whatever you're doing is well received, then you see the need to continue to give more. And I always say that we are on a journey of continuous improvement. We are still not perfect. No one is perfect. So as we move on, we pick lessons, we learn, we better our steps. So it's been good for me. I've really enjoyed this journey. I'm glad I finally took that step, and I know with time it's going to really get better. Yeah.
That's fantastic to hear, Kofi. Awesome. Well, no, good on you for, and I love that where you said about it was fear, and you've recognized the fear, but you've taken action anyway. And I was talking to a colleague the other day about relationship with fear, and that would be a huge thing. Is like the better relationship you have with fear. I think the better placed you are, not only professionally in business, but also personally as well. And fear, if you can have a handle on fear, you can really use it to your advantage because everybody gets frightened. You know, we've got different levels of fear in very different situations, and we're all different, of course. And what might frighten me won't frighten you, and vice versa. Um, but if you can identify that fear and drive through it and come out the other side, it's like there's almost no better feeling of like you talked about self-development and progression. And you know, if you can really march forward and strive through challenges and fear, it just feels incredible. And you need to do that. I mean, if you cannot have a healthy relationship with fear in business, then you have got a lot to worry about in itself. I mean, that should be, in a weird way, that should be fearful in itself, because business is very challenging, and it comes with a lot of fearful moments that you can be out of your depth in situations that scare you often. And so the better placed you are with fear, the better relationship you have with fear, then the more chance you have of success, to succeed along your business journey. So and it's funny as well, is that you do then find, whether it's you're good personally with fear, and then that helps professionally, or if you develop a really healthy relationship with fear professionally, and how that then benefits into your personal life. And I think both can benefit each other. So that's a huge take on that one. So it's great to hear that you, even though you were fearful, you took action, and positive action, and here you are, continuing your personal development. So a lot of respect for you, Kofi.
Thank you. So back to you. I come back to that role as the host.
There we go.
And
I bounced that.
and you as the guest.
There we go. Yes. What would you
All
like
right,
to
then.
know?
Yeah. So you've been at this for quite some time.
Mhm.
If you were to do this all over again, what would you do different?
That's like $1 million question in a way. Yeah, that's a very, very good question. What would you do different? It's a weird one, Kofi, because I don't really live with regret. I don't live with regret. There's very few things, if anything, in life that I regret, because I think you learn so much from mistakes, from situations of challenge and fear, as we've spoke about. So it's quite difficult to look and go back and say, I wish I would have changed. I would change that, because of course you're not able to change it. So, and I have a good relationship with that knowledge. You meet a lot of people that with the benefit of hindsight, saying, "Oh, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I could change that," and they invest emotion and time in that way of thinking, and it's wasted, because you cannot change something. So it is an interesting question for me, because I just don't think like that. I don't think, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that, or I wish I didn't start my eBay company because that didn't make money. But actually, without that, my next business wouldn't have happened. And if it wasn't for that next business, then my next business wouldn't have happened. And the journey, and it's all about the journey, and the journey is necessary for you to experience. So what would I do differently, Kofi? I think, if anything, I would have moved overseas earlier, but I did also try in 2007. Then that didn't happen for reasons out of my control. My path changed. I tried to move to Philippines in 2015, and that's 2015, 16. That didn't happen, again outside of my control. Then tried to go to Thailand, and again out of my control. And I got to 2018 and found that it was all up to me, and it was nobody else to answer to. And so even though I wish I'd have moved overseas sooner, it wasn't for the lack of trying, and it was circumstantial that broke down. So yeah, it's hard to look back and say I wish I'd have done that differently, because you're on a journey, and the situations and challenges result in other things. And we very early on spoke about the challenges and negative situations can result in some of the most positive opportunities that you could ever experience. So I don't think I would really change anything. I mean, I wouldn't, but based on that, mate, I wouldn't want to repeat the first 3.5 years of basically earning no money, moving back in with my parents. I love traveling, and I traveled very little because of the lack of money and how much time I needed to commit. I wouldn't want to repeat that, but to say I would change it, I wouldn't, because it set me up. It was my education into business, and you need that. And anybody out there trying to bypass that, you're selling yourself short. You need to put in the hard yards, the time, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the challenges, the sleepless nights, the loss of money, the not making money. often, it's that fail often, be challenged often, be outside your comfort zone, scare yourself frequently. And so I wouldn't want to repeat that because it was very tough. It was very tough, but it's the benefit long term of that. And of course, then when you start making money, I remember when I started making money and good money, and I was just like, I felt like, I wasn't, but just started to make money. Almost felt like a millionaire. I mean, I was far from a millionaire, but the feeling of having all of that hard work, and now I'm starting to make money, and people are believing in me and buying my products, services, and there's no greater feeling. And that feeling doesn't feel as good without the hard work and challenges leading up to that. And so to bypass that is almost criminal. It's almost criminal. It's like you want people. You hear it a lot with parents. So and you're a father, Kofi, and would and I've asked this question and spoken on this topic with a number of mates and business owners who are parents. And parents don't want the kids to have it easy, especially when you were brought up and you had challenges, and those situations and experiences helped mold you and made you the man you are. And you hear a lot like that. There was Cristiano Ronaldo, that one of the world's best ever footballers, and he was talking about his son, and he doesn't want his son to have it easy because he doesn't want to give him an easy life. He wants him to be challenged and face fears and difficult situations. And that goes the same in business. You need to be challenged and fearful. So yeah, man, don't go out and be scared and fearful. So I wouldn't change anything. No, wouldn't change anything. But I wouldn't want to repeat those times either, mate. In the same breath.
Sure. That's great. We're just about wrapping up. Where do you draw your inspiration from? What motivates you to do all that you're doing? Because I believe you need that. We all have our down moments, and we have things that we look to, things that we draw strength from. Where do you draw your inspiration or motivation from?
Yeah, I as I said, I got ADHD, so I'm blessed with a high natural level of energy. But it can also be chaotic as well, and I've experienced that over the years. And so it's about channeling that correctly. And if I channel that correctly, I can literally perform in the top 1%, which, and I've experienced that often and felt that, and it can be amazing. But on the flip side of that, if I'm doing a mundane, repetitive task, that somebody normal doing a repetitive task can just do that and do it easily, and they won't struggle and be okay. It's like torture for me, mate. So although it's a blessing to have this hyper energy, it can also be a real challenge. But a real big driver for me is just success, and success is also equates to happiness for me. And as long as I'm happy often, and able to then project that happiness and success onto others to benefit others, then that's a real driver for me. I mean, if I'm in a good place, then I ensure that others benefit from that as best as possible. And so that's a real driver for me. I mean, I hate bringing people down. And I'm sure people know of many people who just have this natural ability to bring people down with their negative attitudes and feelings. And I'm quite the opposite, really. And so, yeah, the drive, the motivation is success, and it's not money. It's money equals opportunity and freedom, of course, and we all need a certain amount of that. But for me, it's lifestyle, living in the sunshine, eating healthy, having the flexibility to, under normal circumstances, to travel, to visit new places and visit friends around the world. And so that's really my motivation and driver. So if I'm working on business and that provides the opportunities that are important to me, then yeah, I would suggest that's my biggest driver, really, and success and success equating to happiness, really. So yeah, an opportunity, mate. So that's what I would suggest is my biggest driver.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing time conversing with you. What will be your last words or pieces of advice for my audience as we wrap up?
Easy one, mate. It's a real easy one. He's and I'm sure listeners can appreciate that I like a good chat and I can talk. But the last one to wrap up is to take action. Take action, and if you don't know what action to take, don't sit back and wait for the right opportunity to come along, because the chances of you identifying that right opportunity as it being the right opportunity to take are very little, and it'll probably pass you by anyway. So take action. Take action, and even if it's the wrong path to go down, take it, because the opportunity that can come along from a journey, a road that you take, can be incredible, and you can often find yourself in some amazing situations. You can find yourself in some very challenging ones, of course, but we've spoken about how challenging situations can result in really positive opportunities. But just take action. There's a lot of people out there, and have been over the past year especially, wondering what to do. What should I do? How should I do it? I don't really know. I'm lost. Well, just do something. If that means volunteering at an animal shelter, go and volunteer to then have a purpose, a reason to get out of bed, a reason to go do something and engage with people. I mean, for example, I was volunteering myself at an animal shelter when I was in my reflection period, and I'd given everything up, and I'd be walking the dogs for 3.5, 4 hours, but at that time I was listening to podcasts, so I was learning and I was reflecting, and that really set up my day. So I was energized. I would then head back to my desk, and I would be focused and energized for the day ahead. So take action, whatever it looks like. Take some sort of action, some form of action. Don't sit back and wait for the right opportunity to come along, because it will often pass you by and you won't realize it was the right opportunity. So take action. And look, like you have, Kofi, there's no greater example. You spoke about being fearful, but you took action on your podcast. And if it wasn't for that, you and I wouldn't be chatting today, and we wouldn't have connected on a number of times that we have before today's episode. So there's no greater example than yourself, mate. So take action, people out there. And also, if get your listeners, your viewers, to drop good examples of their action. I would encourage them to engage with you and provide good examples of taking action, because those good examples, putting them out there, will benefit others. And also, by people putting their examples, their positive examples of taking action, can be good for themselves as well, by documenting it and putting it out into the public domain. So yeah, positivity breeds positivity, Kofi, and action is key. So I will leave you and your viewers and your audience on that one today.
Thank you so much, James. And it's said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So take action. Take
Absolutely.
action. Yes, yes, yes. So thank you so much, James, for sharing your rich journey and experiences with us today on the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. Listeners, as you can see, we are taking action. So you've been used to having just the audio version of our shows. But going forward, we're going to introduce videos. So we're going to have a good blend of the two. We're taking action. We're really taking action. It's been an amazing time sharing these words of experience and of encouragement with you all. We'll come your way with another exciting episode of this show. As always, we are not in normal times, so let's all continue to keep safe and also continue to keep hope alive. Take care and stay blessed.
Thanks, Kofi.
Yes.